ask forgiveness for the believers without anybody asking them, right? And the same thing when the Prophet ﷺ made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his ummah, without his ummah asking anything from him, although during his life ﷺ, people would go to him and they would ask him to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them, and this is valid for anyone. But after the Prophet ﷺ died, none of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, none of them did that whatsoever, because they understood that this is something that is only to be done to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And to make this meaning established in the heart, because this is basically the foundation of the deen of Islam. Su'al al-khalq, to ask the creation of Allah in matters of this dunya, matters of this worldly thing, that they have capability of doing it, right? There's nothing wrong with that, although the heart should be attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And there are hadith and ayat, of course, the whole Quran is about this. It's about relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, depending with one's heart on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ رَضُوا مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ سَيُؤْتِينَ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَرَسُولُهُ إِنَّا إِلَى اللَّهِ رَاغِبُونَ. Which means that if for the hypocrites, if they would have been pleased with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave them with matters of worldly thing, and they said, Hasbun Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us, سَيُؤْتِينَ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَرَسُولُهُ, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us from His bounty, and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also would give us. Inna ila Allahi raghibun. Right? We to Allah raghibun. Raghibun means seeking, or what's raghibun? What's a better word for raghibun? Desire, right? So we desire everything from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although the ayah says, سَيُؤْتِينَ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَرَسُولُهُ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide for us from His bounty, and His Messenger, the Prophet ﷺ, would give them things during his life, والسلام, but then when it came to the matter of ibadah, إِنَّا إِلَى اللَّهِ رَاغِبُونَ, we are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here the order of the words to make it very exclusive. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we desire, we seek anything and everything, we seek it only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though al-ita, or to give something that the Prophet ﷺ would give them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. So here again the ita. What the Prophet ﷺ brought to you, you take what he forbade you from doing, then you stay away from it. So, and they didn't say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not order them to say, حَسْبُنَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. Right? They said, حَسْبُنَ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us. So see how the precise wording of the ayat, right? That they were ordered to say, حَسْبُنَ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us. We do not need anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when it came to the meaning of giving from matters of this worldly gain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them from His bounty, and the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is mentioned. And then the ayah ends with, Inna ila Allahi raghibun, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone we desire, and so on. So as he says, فَالرَّغْبَةُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. The raghbah, or the desire, should be, this is where the heart is inclined to and rely to and so on, is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And the same thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَخْشَى اللَّهَ وَيَتَّقِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَائِزُونَ. Whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is mentioned in matters of obedience. And fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيَخْشَى اللَّهَ, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيَتَّقِهِ, and have the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the successful ones. So the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was mentioned in matters of obedience, not mentioned in matters of the fear or the taqwa and so on. These are ibadat, right? Obedience to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, of course, although you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, because the obedience to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is from the obedience of Allah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَنْ يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهُ. Whoever obeys the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has indeed obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the Prophet ﷺ, he conveys the message from Allah. So in reality, people are being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they obey the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But this is not a ibadah that is done to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's why if a person is obedient to his parents, he's not worshipping them, right? But the acts of worship is only to be done to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Quran clear in this. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he said to Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, when he was a young boy, in the hadith that we heard it many times, Ya ghulam inni mu'allimuka kalimat, or I will teach you, young boy, I will teach you words. Ihfadillah yahfad, protect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means his orders, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you. Ihfadillah tajidhu tujahak, protect the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in front of you, with his knowledge and power and so on. Ta'arraf ila Allahi fi al-rakha, get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at times of ease. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would know you, meaning He will help you and support you and so on at times of difficulties. إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ, very exclusive. إِذَا سَأَلْت, if you ask. If you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ, if you seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tell Him, if you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask me too. If you seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and seek help from me too. Come to me after I die, and I would take care of your needs and so on. Prophet ﷺ never said that to them. If this is part of the deen, and all the words of the Prophet ﷺ is about asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and so on. And the Prophet ﷺ, as the hadith in Muslim Imam Ahmad, when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the Prophet ﷺ took the pledge from some of them that they would never ask anything from any human being. And as Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu كان يسقط الصوت من يده فلا يقول لأحد ناولني إياه. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, his stick would fall from his hand while he's on the horse or whatever. He would not ask someone to give it to him. And he would say, Khalili amarani alla as'al al-nasa shay'an. He would say, my Khalil, my close friend, which is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, asked me not to ask people anything. And he would do that with anything. Although this is permissible for someone, there is a life standing right there, give me the stick, there's nothing wrong with that. But to that level, they would go far as not asking anybody anything. And they would rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala totally with their hearts. So someone would do this with something that is permissible, to tell someone, give me a chair, give me this or give me that. They would ask other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in things that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of doing. Like they went very high level, right, where it's already permissible to do that. They left this. So would anybody imagine that they would ask the Prophet ﷺ, after he dies والسلام, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their forgiveness and so on? There's no way whatsoever they would do this. And the same thing in Sahih Muslim, Auf ibn Malik, when he said that the Prophet ﷺ took the pledge of a group of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum وَأَسَرَّ إِلَيْهِمْ كَلِمَةً خَفِيًّا. When he took the pledge of Islam, he whispered to them with something that only group of them heard it. أَلَّا تَسْأَلُوا النَّاسَ شَيْئًا. Do not ask people anything. قال عوف رضي عنه, he said, فَلَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ بَعْضَ أُولَٰئِكَ النَّفَرِ يَسْقُطُ الصَّوْتَ مِنْ يَدِهِ فَلَا يَقُلْ لِأَحَدٍ نَوِلْنِي. I've seen some of these people, the sawt or the stick would fall from his hand, he would not tell anyone, give it to me. And also in the hadith, the famous hadith of the 70,000, those who enter Jannah without reckoning, without any hisab, as the Prophet ﷺ said, يَدْخُلْ مِنْ أُمَّةِ الْجَنَّةِ 70,000 بِغَيْرِ حِسَاب. 70,000 without reckoning, without hisab whatsoever. And the Prophet ﷺ said, هُمُ الَّذِينَ لَا يَسْتَرْقُونَ. They don't ask for ruqya, وَلَا يَكْتَوُونَ. They don't seek cure in, I keep on forgetting the name of it. Catering? Burning, but they have a name for it? Cauterization. Right. وَلَا يَتَطَيَّرُونَ. And they're never pessimistic or have evil omens. وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. And on the Lord they put their trust. So when you see the first word, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ praised them, these people that are the best of, after of course the messengers of Allah, and the best of the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 70,000, they will enter Jannah without even questioning. Right? The first thing that was mentioned, لَا يَسْتَرْقُونَ. They don't ask for ruqya. Ruqya is when the dua is being said on someone, reciting Quran on someone or dua or whatever, right? The point here that they're being praised of is not that they don't do ruqya. Prophet ﷺ used to do ruqya on himself, alayhi salatu wassalam. And Aisha radiallahu anha did that to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the Prophet ﷺ would do it on others. And this is something that is very important that we do it. And if you go visit a sick person, make ruqya on him, right? And you make ruqya on your children and yourself, and so on. But the point is here, which is a very fine line, they don't ask for it. So if somebody did ruqya on you, no problem. The person is not doing opposite to what this hadith is. The hadith is they don't ask for ruqya from anyone, although this is permissible. If somebody asks for someone to make ruqya on him, it's halal, there's nothing wrong with this, but it negates the highest level of putting the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because there might be some thing in the heart that makes that person attached to the righteous person. That maybe because of his righteous and so on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would bless his ruqya, which is nothing wrong with it. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure him, he would find some attachment of his heart towards the righteousness of this person. So even that level of the heart to be attached to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although it's permissible, but it negates the highest level of relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So can someone says then I won't seek ruqya for myself? No, this is wrong. It's against the way of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ was the best ever relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's part of tawakkul and relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you make ruqya on yourself and on others and so on, because this is the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right, when he said hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my sufficient. And when it was said that Jibreel alayhi salam, when he came and he asked him, do you need help? He said, if it's from you, I don't need anything, but if it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes. And that's what hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil means. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for me. I do not need the help of anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is ala kulli shay'in qadir. He subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do all things. Human beings are limited. And this is again what Tawheed is all about. Right? The Tawheed is to put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and so on. So knowing this, and you will see this is, the whole Quran is about this, right? And if you go through the stories of the prophets and what their words, what would they say, and the Prophet ﷺ and his ahadith and so on, right? Then he says after that, فَكَيْفَ يَقُولُ, knowing all of this, how then a person would say, حَسْبِي مِنْ سُؤَالِي عِلْمُهُ بِحَالِي وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ وَقَدْ أَمَرَ الْعِبَادَ أَنْ يَعْبُدُوهُ وَيَتَوَكَّلُوا عَلَيْهِ وَيَسْأَلُوهُ. Right? When people sometimes would say, it's enough for me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows my situation, so he does not ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a deficiency, right? Because the prophets of Allah, they asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved for his slaves to ask him, right? And that's why sometimes people, they think this is out of the adab or the manners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for matters of goodness of oneself. They think this is bad manners, to ask, as if you're someone that you just want your personal benefit and so on. This is an act of worship. You're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you ask for even the salt in the food and for your shoes to be fixed. And this is not bad manners. This is not something to be belittled, right? This is, you're doing an act of worship. When a person is like this in all of his affairs, when a person will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as one of the early generations of Islam said, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for even the salt in your food, this is the complete and the perfect tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not bad manners or anything like this. Or a person would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only for certain things, or thinking that from the manners is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah only, or even some of them they say not even that. And this is all against the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate goal of the believers. Although a person might sometimes, he will be busy with the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that takes him away from asking. That's okay. right? He's making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but at a certain point he's busy with reciting Quran, for example, right? And the Quran is taking him away from that moment, from asking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an authentic hadith, although some of the ulama, they said that the hadith is weak, which is من شغله ذكري عن مسألتي أعطيت أفضل ما أعطي السائلين. Whoever my dhikr made him busy from asking me, I would give him more than what I would give those who ask, right? And things like this. And this is definitely, the meaning is correct as long as the person still would ask, because the way of the Prophet ﷺ, his salah and his recitation of the Quran and so on, did not prevent him ﷺ from asking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the salah, you have sujood, you have times where you make dua, and there's no contradiction whatsoever in this or that. And then that's what he says, the best of the ibadat done physically is the salah, and in it is the recitation and the dhikr and the dua, and each one in its place. So when you're standing after you say the takbir and before you recite Surah Al-Fatiha, you make the dua over istiftah, right? And in ruku' and sujood, it is forbidden to recite Quran in ruku' and sujood, and you are ordered to make dua, especially in the sujood. And this is something that is recommended, and the Prophet ﷺ ordered us to make dua in the sujood. And it is permissible to make dua while standing if you're reciting Quran, especially if it's a night prayer or during the Taraweeh prayer, that whenever the ayah talks about Jannah, then you ask Allah for Jannah. If it talks about the hellfire, you seek refuge in Allah from the hellfire. If it talks about the bounties of Allah, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from His bounties, as the Prophet ﷺ used to do. So you would find in the ibadah, you would do all the different types of ibadat, and not to say I'm busy with this and not that, but it's all from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also to make dua for your Muslim brother, this is definitely a good thing, and this is something that we know from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he said alayhi salatu wasalam, مَا مِنْ رَجُلٍ يَدْعُ لِأَخِيهِ بِظَهْرِ الْغَيْبِ. There's no man that would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to his brother, بِظَهْرِ الْغَيْبِ. ظَهْرِ الْغَيْبِ meaning when he does not see him, he's not with him, he's away from him, and he would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this Muslim, إِلَّا وَكَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ مَلَكًا. Unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make a malak, an angel, his job is every time that he would make the dua for his brother, the malak would say, the angel would say, Ameen wa laka bimithli. Would say Ameen, and you also get the like of it. Exactly what you asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your brother. You asked for your brother forgiveness, you get the same. You asked for him to be guided, you get the same. Matters of dunya, you will get the same. This is by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But بِظَهْرِ الْغَيْبِ, not that he is listening to you and mashallah you're getting some benefit from this. No, بِظَهْرِ الْغَيْبِ. And that's why when the ulama, they talk about this, you don't need to be reminded as a Muslim to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your Muslim brothers when you're alone. So it shouldn't be done, and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum didn't used to say to one another, don't forget to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me بِظَهْرِ الْغَيْبِ when you're alone. There's no need for this. It's not ظَهْرِ الْغَيْبِ anymore, right? It's if a person know the way of the Prophet ﷺ, by himself he would make dua to all of the ones that he knows. And even when he sees his brother, he has a situation or a problem, or he doesn't look happy, or whatever there is, right? Without him knowing, on his own, and how many people do this? This is something that is, you see the reward that you would get the like, right? And the human being, by nature, they are greedy. They don't like to, waste their time to benefit others. They have to seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in doing this. So the reward is great. But then when nobody can hear you whatsoever except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for yourself and for the Muslims in large and for the ones that you know, right? This is such a great effect in one's life and the guidance, and again this is one of the means for the dua to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As someone would say, whenever he would have a need, he would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his Muslim brothers for that need, so that he will get it, because the hadith says that his dua will be accepted. So this is an act of worship to be done. But asking the makhluk or the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يقول أن يقضي حاجة نفسه أو يدعو له فلم يؤمر به. We would never be ordered, as you would see in the Quran or the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, never you are ordered to say, or there's no order in the Quran and the Sunnah for you to go to someone to ask him to make dua for you. There's nothing. On the ulama they say it's permissible to go to someone that is alive and to ask him to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you. But would you find any ayah or hadith of the Prophet ﷺ telling the Muslims, go to each other and ask each other to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you? There is no such a thing. Right? But since people would come to the Prophet ﷺ and ask from him the dua, and he would make dua, right? And the same thing happened to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, so there is no problem. But it's not something that is recommended or something that a person is being stressed for him. That's part of his worship, is that he search for those who are righteous and he go ask them to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. Right? So this is a very important point. Except su'al ahl al-ilm. Except asking the people of knowledge. Not to make dua, but asking them about the matters of knowledge. So this is a type of a question. You're asking them. So you won't say, Ya Rab, teach me how to make my salah. Right? And you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Rab, let me make my salah perfectly, which is okay to make this dua. And then, but you say this dua without asking the people of knowledge. You think that you will have the inspiration, that you would learn how to make the salah according to the way of the Prophet ﷺ by making dua, and you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, you have to go ask the people of knowledge. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us in the Quran. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask, فَاسْأَلُوا. Right? This is the order in the Quran, to ask. The order to ask in the Quran, as su'al mentioned in the Quran, in matters of ibadah, is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Right? وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. If my slaves, they ask you about me, O Messenger of Allah, I'm close to them. But when it comes to matters of knowledge, and that's why the level of the ulama is such a high level. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to ask Him, to ask them. This is nothing little whatsoever. So to ask them what? To ask them how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and their obedience is mandatory for us to be obedient to them as long as it's in the ma'ruf, in matters of goodness, and not in disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and since the ilm, the knowledge has to be given and has to be, a person should not hide the knowledge, right? Then whoever is asked about matters of knowledge of the deen, فَكَتَمَهُ, as the Prophet ﷺ said, أَلْجَمَهُ اللَّهُ بِلِجَامٍ مِّن نَارٍ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. That if a person of knowledge, he's asked about matter of knowledge and he conceal it, right? He will be, his mouth will be concealed with fire in the day of judgment, right? This ilm does not decrease by teaching. Because somebody might think, if I teach the ilm that I know, people will be like me and compete with me. Someone might say that. This is definitely shows that he's ignorant. He does not have ilm. Because the ilm increases by teaching it to others. And the more the person teach others what he know from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and the more people will teach it to others and act on it, this is in the balance of the good deeds of the one that teaches and so on. So it's like, as he says, وَلِهَذَا يُشَبَّهُ بِالْمِصْبَاحِ. It's like the bulb or the light. وَكَذَلِكَ مَنْ لَهُ عِنْدَ غَيْرِ حَقٌّ مِنْ عَيْنٍ أو دين كالأمانات مثل الوديعة والمضاربة لصاحبها أن يسألها ممن يعني. This is another thing that you can ask, right? If you have, loans and transactions and so on, there's nothing wrong with asking one another with these types of wealth or inheritance or the will, right? There's nothing wrong with, of course, asking one another to do things. You're an institution, you're in a school, for example, and you're asking people to do certain things. This is something very good. A person should do that. This is amana, this is a trust that has to be done. Or also asking those who are supposed to spend their money on their wives or their children and so on. He's talking about the different things that it is important for people to ask. But when it comes to matters of the deen, matters of the worship, then it's to only ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and not to ask anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One last thing is, when a person, he says, وَمِنَ الْجَزَاءِ, a person when he do a good deed and he wants the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can he ask from the one that he did a favor to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about those who give for the sake of Allah, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. That we feed you for the sake of Allah, we do not want from you any reward or any shukura, to be thankful to us or grateful to us. But the dua is jaza. The dua is one of the reward that you would do to someone that did a favor to you. As the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ أَزْدَ إِلَيْكُمْ مَعْرُوفًا فَكَفِئُوا. Whoever do a favor to you, reward them. فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُوا مَا تُكَافِئُونَهُ بِهِ فَادْعُوا لَهُ حَتَّى تَعْلَمُوا أَنْ قَدْ كَافَأْتُمُوا. If you don't find anything to give him as a reward for what he did to you, then make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for him till you know that you have been given them the reward and their share. So, and that's why when the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says Jazakallahu khairan, he had fulfilled the shukr or the gratefulness to someone that did a favor to him. But the one that is doing the favor, he should not wait for the reward, he should not be seeking this. These are the types of things that it only goes one way, right? It's like when you're on the right side and somebody's telling you, please go ahead and go in. You go in first. It's part of the manners that you would offer him first. Although, you're on the right side, but it's something that it should come from him, should come from the one that is not on the right side. You understand? The same thing, you carry a bag, right? You should carry your own things. But if you're walking with someone and he's carrying a bag, you should try to help him and carry the bag for him. But that person should not say, yeah, sure, go ahead. Right? It's these types of things that comes with manners that he should, if he can handle it himself, then he should be thankful and so not being rude or anything. Jazakallah khairan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for intentions, but it's okay, I'm good. If he can't do it on his own, then there's nothing wrong with people helping one another. But the point is like this: you did a favor to someone and you're waiting for him to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you. If he doesn't, then you have something in your heart, why this person, you're not doing it for this. If you're doing it for that, then that's what you get. But if you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get the rewards in the hereafter, that's what is sufficient. But the one that the favor was done to, he should not be greedy and he should make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't have to be in front of one's face, but that should be done, yes, like this, Jazakallah khairan, may Allah reward you, whatever there is. And even behind his back, that he should also make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for anyone that did a favor for him. And that's why with sadaqah, especially with charity, or any good deed a person do, sometimes people, they fall into this mistake. They give the charity to the poor, and the poor says, may Allah reward you, you did so much. And the person would say, just make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me. Just make dua for me. It is not very good to say that, right? Leave it for the sake of Allah. Don't ask that person for anything, even the dua. You understand? And you should not make your charity for the purpose that he would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you. No, your intentions is that you're giving the charity, you're helping that Muslim, right? Seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone in the hereafter. You don't want nothing from nobody, not even the dua. You don't seek that, right? But that person, if he knows the matters of knowledge and the deen, as the Prophet ﷺ said, he should make dua. You understand how these things works? So it's like there's many things like this work that way. Like when you're invited and people would say, would you like to eat? And you say no, then they say, okay, there's no food today. This is not a good thing. Right? You should be shy and they should insist. Right? And many times people lose because of these different cultures and so on. But it's part of this etiquette and manners. Sometimes even matters of the deen, you would find something haram to be sold, but it's halal for you to purchase it. Right? Like, if a person, now I get myself into trouble, I have to find an example. And again, I'm not giving fatwas here, but say for example, the ulama, those who made it permissible for someone to have a kidney transplant. It's permissible to have that from someone else, but it's not permissible to purchase it, to buy it. But if the only way, again, the ulama, they have different opinions in this. Some of them, they said it's not permissible whatsoever, and just put your trust in Allah and that's it. Some said it's permissible to do these transplants as long as it does not cause harm to the donor, right? And for example, a person giving his eye to someone or his heart to someone while he's alive, this is not permissible. But if it's something that doesn't cause much harm and so on, then some of the ulama, they said it's permissible with certain conditions. But say according to that opinion, that it's permissible, but he doesn't find anyone that would give it to him voluntarily like this. Because it's not permissible to be sold. You can't say I'm going to sell my kidney for whatever money. That's haram. Right? But what if that person is, he urgently needs it, and the only way that he would get it is for someone that is selling it, back home. This is something that is widespread. According to that opinion, these ulama, they would say, then it's permissible for you to purchase it, but it's haram for him to sell it. Right? So, things of that nature. So, paying attention to these things, but again, the subject is matters of dua. You don't ask for others to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you, but people should make dua to each other whenever the favor is being done and so on. One last thing for sure inshallah. قال بعض السلف إذا قال لك السائل بارك الله فيك فقل وفيك بارك الله فمن عمل خيرا مع المخلوقين سواء كان المخلوق نبيا أو رجلا صالحا أو ملكا من الملوك أو غنيا من الأغنياء فهذا العامل بالخير مأمور بأن يفعل ذلك خالصا لله يبتغي به وجه الله لا يطلب به من المخلوق جزاء ولا دعاء ولا غيره لا من نبي ولا رجل صالح ولا من الملائكة فإن الله أمر العباد كلهم أن يعبدوه مخلصين له الدين. Some of the early generations of Islam, they said, if the one that is asking you for money or whatever would say to you, Barakallahu feek, may Allah bless you, tell him, wa feeka barakallah. Don't be satisfied because to respond that, to give him in return, so that your charity is sincerely for the sake of Allah. Right? Not for this da'wah, not for this dua from him. You give it back to him. You said the same thing to him, so you're even now. Now you're giving your charity sincerely for the sake of Allah. As he says, whoever do khayr, any goodness with the makhluqeen, with the human beings, with the creation of Allah, whether it's a prophet or a man, righteous man, or a king, or a rich man, this amil al-khayr, the one that do what is good, he is ordered to do it sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, does not ask anything from the makhluk, does not ask anything from the creation of Allah, no reward, no dua, nothing, not even from a prophet, or a righteous man, or from the angels, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the ibad, all of them, ordered all the creation of Allah to worship Him, mukhlisina lahu-d-din, with ikhlas, with sincerity, with purity, that they don't ask anyone anything. They only ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the deen of Islam. If the disbelievers, this is the da'wah that should be for the deen of Islam. Right? This is the da'wah of the tawheed. It's not contaminated with shirk, as some people they think when they see the deviations of others. Right? What's the difference between from this religion or that religion? If it's all about asking the makhluk and the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who fulfill this tawheed, and to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد.